Hey everyone, Evan here. Welcome to the Sports Ballers podcast. Today our show begins its 6th year. In this episode we'll discuss some of the biggest moves from this past week's MLB trade deadline, my O's and Corey's Yankees bookending the AL East and not in the way that you're used to, and just a little bit of NFL news as preseason action kicks off later this evening. All of that and more coming up on episode 246 of the Sports Ballers podcast. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Evan Ash, joined as always by Corey Puffett and Eric Meyer. How are y'all doing today?
Pretty good.
Feeling pretty good. Ready to start our 6th year.
Yes, it's our 6th season, episode 246, like you just heard. Let's just get right into it. And we'll start at the top with the Orioles, who are in first place and have the best record in the American League, like all of it. They did drop a couple games to the Phillies last week, which was, a little irritating. But the Orioles did win 2 out of 3 against the Yankees this past weekend. Eric and I were there for that. Orioles put up a touchdown in the first inning. 6 runs had scored before Severino even got one guy out.
And then they added the extra point before the inning closed.
Yeah, and then the extra point is good, of course. So the Orioles took the season series from the Yankees. That's 7 out of the 13 games. And they're not going to play each other anymore the rest of the year.
It feels kind of weird when we still have 2 months to play.
I mean, that's the balanced schedule, though.
Yeah.
Right? Ask the 2 Central divisions how they're doing. Having to play,
teams that are good.
Yeah.
More often.
Teams that are good instead of each other.
So I was looking today, and the At-Bat app updated its UI, and particularly with the standings section of it.
Finally.
Finally, that you can scroll to the right and you can see a few things in the standings portion that had not been available for us to see before on there, including records against teams above 500. And 3 of the 4 teams in the American League with a winning record in those games are in the American League East. The only one outside of the AL East is the Texas Rangers to have a winning record against teams better than 500.
Mm-hmm.
The Orioles have the most wins against above 500 teams in all of baseball.
I mean, they keep playing teams that are above 500. There's been...
And they keep beating them.
No days off, right?
Yeah.
We already done with the A's and the Royals and those kind of teams.
Their series against the Mets starts tomorrow. This will be their first game against a sub-500 team since June 11th. 44 straight games against above 500 teams. The Orioles are 26-18 in that stretch.
Wow.
So, tough schedule, but making the best of it and winning a lot of games. Today took care of business. Got to former Oriole Kevin Gausman. Knocked him around quite a bit. The only savings grace for the Blue Jays was that Ryan McKenna came up twice with the bases loaded and 1 out, and twice he struck out, including the second time where he struck out on 3 straight splitters basically in the same spot. Absolutely useless.
Mm-hmm.
But the Orioles still won. Got more contributions from Ryan Mountcastle, who either loves or hates the Blue Jays, depending on, how he's feeling, but he's crushing the ball against them. Went 11 for 13 in this series. Just a nonstop hit machine against Toronto. It's been like that pretty much his whole career. But the series notwithstanding, he's been great since he came off the IL with his vertigo issues. And right as soon as Evan, who has been a ride or die Ryan Mountcastle guy since like 2016 or whatever, whenever he was drafted,
something like that.
Yeah, Evan's been all about Ryan Mountcastle, and then like a week ago, he's like, all right, I'm done with Ryan Mountcastle. He stinks.
He
Get
turned
rid
into
of
a
him.
pumpkin, man.
Yeah, he's got to go. And now he's just crushing the ball. So, maybe if you hopped off of Josh Rosen at some point, he might actually get back in the NFL.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's probably about time to give up on him as well.
He'll be a Pro Bowler now.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez. He's been excellent since returning from AAA. He was ineffective in his, first stint with the Orioles this year. We were at one of those games where he just couldn't stop giving up bombs and walking people. But since he came back from AAA, it seems like he's figured out something. He seems like he has more confidence now. He knows he's one of the best players on the field whenever he walks on it. And I get that sense from him. Eric, do you see that?
Well, the main thing I see with him is that he's locating his fastball, right? Like he's getting ahead in counts before he'd fall behind 2-0, 3-0 because he couldn't throw the fastball for a strike. Players would sit on it, and he's kind of mixed in some of the other off-speed pitches pretty well. His command of those pitches still needs a little bit of work. Like I think that's what cost him against Vladdy in that at-bat where he ended up walking him, was because he kept throwing fastball after fastball to him because it was a full count. He didn't seem to trust his ability to throw a competitive pitch that wasn't a fastball. And in the end, he finally decided to throw a slider, but it was way outside, and Vladdy took it, even though Vladdy had chased a previous slider of his that was well outside. But he laid off of this one, and ultimately Grayrod ended up putting him on base. And, of course, the bullpen came in and do what they always seem to do when Grayson Rodriguez leaves runners, which is let them all score, and then some. So the numbers look good, but I don't think they tell the whole story of how well he's pitched. And when you compare it to what he was doing before, it's a complete game changer for the Orioles, especially because of what happened to Tyler Wells, where he seems like he's burnt out a little bit. He's been sent down to sort of, I guess, slow down his season. Like everybody on this team seems to be approaching innings limits, so you're going to need as many fresh arms that are capable and effective as possible. So if Grayson can continue to give Orioles quality starts, or maybe not statistically a quality start, but like good starts that get you into the 6th and 7th inning with the game still competitive, or even when you're well ahead. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Garrett Cole on Friday night last week, and the Orioles came out on top. That was not expected from me. Like, I figured that if the Orioles were going to win the series, it was probably going to have to be Saturday and Sunday, but Cole didn't do anything but dominate, and it didn't matter because the Yankees couldn't score off of Grayson either. So he's been very, very good. Very encouraged with what I'm seeing in him. I like the fact that his velocity hasn't dipped later on in the innings. Like he seems to be able to maintain his level. It's just a matter of getting experience at this point, because I feel like any mechanical issues or whatever was going on before, he seems to have straightened those out for the most part, and hopefully he's able to continue to do that.
Does it seem to you that like Grayson's always facing like the other team's ace, who's one of the best pitchers in the whole American League? Like, he made his debut this season against Jacob deGrom. And then he also went up against McClanahan a couple weekends ago.
Yep, and he went up against Cole. Like I said, he went up against Ohtani. We were there for that one.
Yeah,
like the scheduling has been unkind to him in terms of who he's going up against. But the Orioles have won 8 out of 13 games of his starts, and that includes most of the bad ones somehow. Like the Orioles
The
are able
DeGrom
to.
game?
Yeah, they lost that game, but Grayson didn't lose that game. The game was tied when he left, and then both.
Oh
so.
God, where did he go? Did something happen to him?
I
haven't complained about him lately.
Injured. He's been rehabbing for a while. I think he's in AAA, and I can't imagine the team's in any hurry to activate him.
I'm sure they are, because McKenna keeps getting at bats. So.
Well, McKenna, we don't have any other outfielders. Come on.
What happened to Colton Cowser?
He's batting .098.
Oh,
and
okay.
We're trying to win here, so,
He's still doing better than McKenna.
Colton Cowser got a double today in his pinch hit opportunity, and it was a key moment because it helped the Orioles avoid having to use Bautista today. But, I understand the concern with sending a rookie who was, 6 for 61 at the plate. And come on, you got to have a little bit of leeway. I agree he should have started today. Yeah. Because today against Gausman, I think either one of them would have been meat. Like, there's no way Cowser's going to hit that splitter, but McKenna's not going to hit anybody at any time, so I'd rather have the rookie get in there and at least get some experience. But
what is McKenna's batting average?
I don't even know. It's not good.
Is it worse than 098?
Of course not. Of course it's not.
So, what are we doing here? This is an everyday thing, watching, our group chats. Evan constantly complaining about every single player on your team. Every single player on a team that has the best record, as you said, in the whole American League. Mm-hmm. All 15 teams. The Orioles are better than the other 14. And yes. Evan can't find a single nice thing to say about anybody on it.
Yeah, I'm regularly having to remind him best record.
I mean, there's just a list of people I'm ready to run out of town.
Well,
I don't. And the replacement is there, and they're just not playing.
I don't have any.
But the players who are playing have you in the front of the league.
There's nothing wrong with disliking or not wanting somebody like Ryan McKenna to play. Same thing with Jorge Mateo. These guys have been objectively bad and aren't going to get any better. But I think that at times I get frustrated with certain players, but there still has to be an understanding. Like today, Jack Flaherty, he goes out there. The first thing he does is he puts the first 2 runners on base in his first start with the Orioles. This is the big guy that we traded for. Well, big relative term, but he was your acquisition at the deadline and puts the first 2 guys on, and then he works out of it, and then he retires. Like after he put those first 2 guys on, he retired 15 straight batters. So there's a little bit of leeway has to be given to trust the front office to know what they're doing sometimes. I mean, they put this team in a position to win, but I think that,
despite their best efforts not to do so,
there are guys on the team that shouldn't be here anymore, and I think that Ryan McKenna is absolutely one of them. I think Jorge Mateo is one of them, and I hope that both of them are gone tomorrow because the Orioles are coming home. There's no reason for Joey Ortiz not to be up with the team at this point when Jorge Mateo can't do anything on any side of the ball. Can't hit, can't field, makes dumb base running mistakes on the rare occasions that he does get on. Usually he gets on because he got somebody else out first. So I'm done with him, but that's one guy. And the other 24, 25 guys or whatever it is at this point, they've been pretty good. I think it's 26-man rosters now.
Oh.
Yeah, so... Oh, McKenna. Yeah,
you said McKenna.
Yeah,
forgot about him.
I didn't forget about him.
Okay.
So the Orioles are there, but they're in a good spot. Again, this is a huge series win. They've already clinched the season series with the Blue Jays after clinching, or they haven't quite clinched with the Rays yet. They have to win one out of
the last 4. Yeah,
and those games will be at Oriole Park. So they're in position to take the division, which unfortunately doesn't look like that good of an outcome given the fact that the number 1 seed is almost certainly going to end up having a tougher matchup than the 2 seed because the 3-6 series is going to be between the worst wildcard team and a division winner that's barely 500.
A division winner that's worse than the worst wildcard.
Yeah, by a lot, like by 5 games. So the 2nd seed is going to get to play them. Mm-hmm. The winner of that. The 1st seed gets stuck playing the 2 best wildcard teams are the winner of that outcome. So, kind of a bad draw for a team that's currently got the best record in the American League. But just go beat everybody anyway. Just go win the whole damn thing. Why not?
Yeah,
why not do that? With this awful team that Evan hates.
This awful team.
I just find it so funny. Like anybody who doesn't actually know Evan, if we were to give them access to our chats, they would think that Evan hates the Orioles.
I just get frustrated because they could be so much better than they are, right? Like I know what this team is capable of, and they're not doing it.
But I don't. Okay, but
how much better do you want the best team in the American League to be?
But and also, how do we know that though? Because the guys that you're presuming are going to make the team better are prospects who haven't played in the league.
Well, I want to see if they can make the team better
or
not.
If, though, and we don't know if
we
they
already
can.
know what the team
McKenna
right now
sucks.
is. Like, those players could make the team better, but they also could make the team worse. Do you want to risk that when you're already in first with the team that you have? You say that. He says they can make the team worse as if they're already terrible.
They're already on the team.
No, I'm saying that the players that you want to bring up, you want to know if they will make the team better.
Yeah.
But you do realize that there is an alternative, that they could make the team worse than it already is, and the team is really good. Do you really want to risk that they would cause the team to play worse when they're
They
doing
could
as well as
strike
they
out
are?
twice with the bases loaded, or drop a fly ball to lose a game
I
directly.
mean, Jorge Mateo is thoroughly replacement level player at this point. So,
or boot a couple balls in Philly.
So yeah, I'm
lead
willing
to
to I'm willing
losses.
to roll the dice on Joey Ortiz over him, and I think any smart organization would. As for Ryan McKenna, I mean,
I was done after.
Cedric Mullins needs to get healthy. Let's just put it
Yes.
that way. Because while I have not,
He got healthy, and then he got unhealthy.
yeah, I still have nothing but faith that Colton Cowser is going to turn it around and be a very good major league player. He's not that right now, right? But there's been some people that have said, "Oh, well, we should have traded him at the deadline because he's actually not good," and before anybody else figures it out. I'm like, this guy was literally the best hitter among the prospects that we have, either up or knocking on the door of the show. And that includes Gunnar Henderson, that includes Adley Rutschman, that includes Jordan Westberg, that includes Joey Ortiz. Right? He was the best guy in the minor leagues at all levels. And he was also a notoriously slow starter at each of those levels. Every time he moved up, he struggled initially, he figured it out, and then he started raking. So you got to give him a shot to get some time, but you also have to balance that against, you can't play a guy who's batting .098 consistently when you're trying to win. So it's a little bit of a, it's not an easy position to be in for Brandon Hyde, who I think Evan unnecessarily hates on a lot, because while Hyde has made moves that I've questioned, he's also made a lot of moves that I've said, hell yeah, do that, and they worked. So he's coming out ahead this year for sure in terms of decisions that he's made, and the team likes him. Like, he's the guy that has, he's had his players back the entire time. I love the fact that he's a bit of a red ass, right? Like, he's just, constantly seems like he's in a bad mood, but that's good. That's great.
The Orioles.
Yeah, I mean,
he managed the Orioles for 5 years.
He had to manage
He
had to manage the 2019, 2020, and 2021 Orioles and the first half of 2022 Orioles. So he has a right to be a little grumpy.
He's exhausted. Can't take it anymore.
And yet he's still making it happen. So
yeah, we mentioned Jack Flaherty. He made his Orioles debut this afternoon. 6 innings, 4 hits, an earned run, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts. So I mean, I was at work and didn't see the game, but it sounds like he was impressive. Eric, you said he retired 15 batters in a row. Just sounded like he was cruising.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Hyde let him finish the 6th. When he got into a little bit of trouble, first couple guys got on. He surrendered a run, but Hyde said, "I'm going to let him finish this inning," and what happens happens, and that's the confidence you need to instill, especially into a new player on your team. Mm-hmm. Like, to say, hey, we trust you to go get out of this inning.
This is why we brought you in here.
Yes, and he delivered. I mean, he was spectacular today. The track record this year has shown that he's been pretty average, right? Like, he hasn't been spectacular, but he hasn't been bad. He's also been the victim of bad luck when it comes to balls in play, and it's not really even just bad luck. He played for the worst defensive team in baseball.
Good grief.
Right? And that baseball team has Nolan Arenado on them.
Oh, my God.
And Nolan Arenado, for the first time in his career, has sucked at playing third base.
What's wrong with him?
He's got a -5 defensive runs saved, and he's a 10-time Gold Glove winner, and he's been in the league for 10 years. So
how do you,
he just fell off a cliff. I don't.
-5?
You could have a lot worse than that. You could have -20, like your boy Derek Jeter had several years.
Oh, your boy Jeets.
Yeah, number 2. But
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he's been bad, and so there's hope for a little bit of regression in a positive way for him. If you're hoping to see the guy consistently that was a top 5 Cy Young finisher like he was back in 2019, that might be a little bit of a pipe dream given the fact that he's had some injuries. But what I saw today was a guy that was probably a little keyed up being on a new team. He was hitting 97 consistently, and apparently that's not really been his bag the last couple seasons, so people were a little bit surprised to see that. I wouldn't anticipate that sustaining, but the Orioles have also had a decent run of getting the best out of certain pitchers. I mean, I don't think that the starting rotation has overwhelming talent. I mean, Dean Kramer, let's be real. Kyle Gibson at this point in his career, let's be real. But they've turned these guys into respectable, serviceable, not great, not even really good starting pitchers, but guys you could send out there and, every 2 or 3 starts, you're going to have a start where you're just like, wow, that was pretty good. And so a guy with actual talent, you might be able to turn him into something worthwhile in the postseason.
I mean, to further prove your point, the Orioles got some decent use out of Austin Voth. And
Feels like an eternity ago.
yeah,
but,
an eternity ago, exactly. But once he came to the Orioles, he got his ERA under infinity. So that's he did something. He got somebody out, unlike his time in Washington last year.
How many appearances did he make in Washington before he came to the Orioles?
Several, and he
still had an infinity.
I think his ERA. I think it's settled around 10.
Okay.
So
okay.
It's still terrible.
Yeah,
but
still garbage. Yeah, still just.
I'm sitting here thinking, wait, he made several starts and did not get an out. Or
They did have a
without an
pitcher.
out.
The Nationals did a couple years ago who his ERA was infinity. Like he never got anybody out ever.
How many innings, or not how many
was
batters
a-
did he face? He didn't throw any innings. Yeah.
No innings. How many innings? Zero.
How many
0.00.
batters did he face?
0.0.0.
I mean, it was at least I guess like 24, 25 batters.
How do you not get anybody out? Like, I feel
Couldn't
like
find home plate.
I feel like if you sent my ass out there and said, "Hey, Eric, go get somebody out," somebody's going to end up just accidentally popping up or
How do you
hitting
give
a line
up?
drive at somebody, and I'm going to get one person out.
How do you give up a 1,000 on base percentage to 25 batters?
Because you walk most of them. And when you do find the strike zone, it's right down the middle. So,
That's really bad.
yeah, he was bad.
Yikes.
I think it was Trevor Rosenthal or something like that.
I don't know. No
Let's
idea
see,
who you're
what
talking
have we talked about all the good stuff. Well, Gunnar and Adley look like the best young duo in baseball.
Oh yeah, especially since they kind of swapped spots in the lineup. I think that's been we've talked about that since Adley got called up to just have him hit leadoff. Like I don't care if he doesn't have speed, like especially
gets
because
on base.
especially because like Adley is a catcher, so naturally he's not fast, but he's not a slow catcher. He runs pretty well for the position he plays. So it's not like he's, to quote Dusty Baker in one of his unfortunate moments where he said, "I don't want people on base because they clog them up. I don't care about OBP." I'm like, well, no, you still want the guys on base, but Adley's not clogging up the base paths. He gets around out there. But having Gunnar actually have somebody to drive in, because it's been a problem with the Orioles struggling at the bottom of the order with, like we talked about, with guys like Mateo and McKenna and Colton Cowser struggling. The bottom three have been automatic outs pretty consistently over the last couple of weeks since we got out of the All-Star break. So Gunnar Henderson would come up with nobody on base with 2 outs, and he'd hit a solo home run or something. And it's like, no, let's get him somebody to drive in. And Adley, who gets on base more than Gunnar but doesn't hit for as much power, it makes sense to put him in front of Gunnar because Gunner's going to be ripping doubles and home runs and all kinds of things. That adds a little bit more value to his at-bats to have Adley ahead of him, even though it's not really conventional to have a catcher as your leadoff guy.
Yeah.
I mean, unconventional, but I'll take effective.
Absolutely.
Right? That's all I want is effective.
And it's not like it's some weird gambit. It makes total sense. You put your best OBP guy at the top of the order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting to see what they do when Cedric Mullins comes back. Does Mullins go bat ninth, or does he bat first and slide everybody down?
I think you're probably going to see him lead off, and then everybody else slides down, which is fine because he's a capable leadoff guy. I think you'll obviously see them make adjustments against left-handed pitching because, I think Mullins should be out there, but it makes sense to have a better hitter against left-handed pitching at the top of the order.
Put Adley 1 and then Cedric 2 and then Gunnar?
I don't know. I don't know what Hyde will plan to do.
I'm sure he'll do something ridiculous like, bench Cody Bellinger against Chris Sale in Game 1.
Well, that wasn't Brandon Hyde. That was Dave
Roberts,
and
that was absurd.
Brandon Hyde's going to be Manager of the Year, Evan. So
I know for a while, despite being one of our better OBP guys, Brett Gardner was batting ninth consistently in the Yankees lineup, and it drove me nuts.
Batting ninth is kind of a turn the lineup over kind of.
I get
position.
that, but
you still want him getting as many at
right.
bats
You
as
want
you
him
can.
getting more at bats if he's getting on base.
Yeah. Who was batting first?
I don't even remember.
Was it
Was it
Judge?
Aaron
For-
Hicks?
No, this was before Judge.
Because Judge had
broke
led off
out.
last year. Oh, this
Right.
this is years ago.
Yeah, this was
when
this was
Brett Gardner wasn't a bum anymore.
Right, when Brett Gardner was still like one of our best OVP guys, and it wasn't because like we didn't have anybody in the lineup. Like he was actually really good and he was fast, so
Yeah.
he could swipe bags.
My uncle Gary
yet-
hated him the whole time.
Yeah, and yet for some reason, like, because he actually had let off for a little while, and then like we switched him to batting ninth, and then he was like going back and forth between 1 and 9. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, do our managers even know what they're doing, or are they just like throwing darts at dartboards to set up our lineup every day?
Well, I saw Gardner hit 2 home runs against Ubaldo in person.
Yeah,
so.
I think he was batting ninth in that game. I'm pretty sure he
Oh, I
was.
thought he was batting leadoff. It just seemed like he
It doesn't
was-
matter. He got
teeing
just
off
as many
against
ABs
Ubaldo.
against Ubaldo. It's just a
Right.
carousel.
Yeah,
So.
I think Judge hit 2 home runs that day too, but he wasn't. Was he even up then? It was 2018.
He had to if he hit 2 home runs.
Well, I wonder if I'm misremembering, right? You know, sometimes stuff gets mixed
I
up.
would
We're
think
getting a
that you
little
would
older now,
remember
Eric.
if Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs in a game that you were at.
No, because we've seen Aaron Judge hit home runs
he
against the
wasn't
Orioles nonstop.
yeah.
So we just kind of assume it's going to happen.
And he wasn't a superstar at that point. Like he
Like
wasn't.
it was like 2016.
This was
he's still a
18.
very large human being. He's memorable.
Yes, but you know, I could only afford seats in the top half of the upper deck.
Well, then if
so
you could see the person, then it's probably Aaron Judge.
Well, you
then.
gotta keep in mind though, Aaron Judge in 2016, his first little stint with the Yankees, he sucked, and everybody thought he was a bum because in the minors he
But
wasn't
he was
good
still a
either.
gargantuan human
Yeah, he
being.
was gigantic, and he also
so
wore
was
99.
Zach Eady, right? And he's big too.
Wait, and you didn't miss him on the court. It was pretty clear who the tall guy was who couldn't hold on to any rebounds against these little gnats that are taking it from him. So
And then I'm forgetting the name of the guy who was like really tiny, and like we had like the biggest difference between our tallest player and the smallest player of like all of baseball.
I know
can't
Judge
remember his
stood
name
next
now.
to AL MVP Jose Altuve in this series one time.
yeah,
Which one of these guys is the MVP of the American League? It's the little guy.
yeah, it's the 5'5" dude. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, you know, let's get back in my wheelhouse, which is, of course, complaining about the Orioles. The bad. The bullpen remains shaky, and Yanier Cano, you know, who went multiple outings without giving up a hit or really anybody hitting the ball, he seems to be wearing down a little bit.
I finally pulled the plug and dropped him from my fantasy team this
Oh, you
past
dropped
week.
him?
Yeah.
He looked good today.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
see
he
that.
pitched well today.
I mean, he'd have an occasional good outing, but he was mixing in a lot of poor ones.
He was
so
getting
I
hit
just-
hard. Like the pitches weren't moving the same way, and a lot of hard contact.
And when
Ben
I'm
McDonald's
not getting any saves, like the most I can hope for is a hold from him anyway. It's not really worth it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Ben McDonald said he was dropping his arm slot or something like that.
Yeah, which indicates fatigue, and was probably also costing him some movement on his pitches that was getting him the easy outs, and they turned into line drives, which is obviously not what you want. So, but he, like I said, he looked good today. I mean, he hadn't pitched since when? What was the last time he had pitched until today? Probably the Yankees series.
Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, so
something like that.
he had some time off. The Orioles used Felix Bautista for 5 outs on Monday and didn't have to use him the rest of the series, so that was nice. Like he was up and warming, but the Orioles were able to scratch off a couple runs against the Blue Jays to push the lead to 5, and they just used Mike Baumann instead, and he took care of business. So Bautista should be reasonably rested.
Yes, and you know, we saw Cano dominate in the All-Star game. You know, the inning before Bautista didn't dominate. But you know that game doesn't count. So, Hayes in another second half tailspin at the plate. Did he get 4 hits today?
He got 4 hits today, so this is a little bit outdated. I wrote this morning. I was like, all right, write this down because I forgot the Orioles were playing an afternoon game, so I figured at worst he'd be 1 for 1 by now, but no, he was actually 4 for 4. I think he had a sac fly too, or maybe not. But
Mountcastle had a sac fly.
Yeah, well, no,
in his 4 for 4
Hayes
day
made
as well.
Hayes made 1 out. He had a sharp line drive to right, but yeah, it seemed like he had a little bit better luck because like he had hit a couple of hard hit balls early in the series, but they were right at guys for double plays. Seems like he found a few more holes. His approach seemed to be more refined than we're used to. I mean, Hayes has always been kind of a free swinger, but
Just swings at everything.
But I think that, you know, with the realization that it's not working, he seemed to have, you know, disciplined his approach a little bit. He was working counts against Kevin Gausman. He did have an unfortunate got thrown out at the plate situation where he just wasn't even close. I have no idea whether the third base coach sent him or he just ran through a stop sign, but whoever was responsible they messed up because he was out by 20
that was
feet.
brutal. I did see that clip. We need to mention Hayes' diving flying catch from, was that Monday? Tuesday?
Yeah, saved the game.
Saved the game. I don't remember what the situation was, but I mean,
There were runners on, and it was about to be a hit. Yeah,
and it was about to be hit with 2 outs, and then Hayes just sort of comes out of nowhere, full Superman dive and catches the ball.
Yep. There was only 1 out at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, still
Huge play. Yep.
huge play. Let's see what else we got here. Colton Cowser struggling. We talked about him batting .098, but got a knock today. We talked about Jack Flaherty, but to just finish that up, the Orioles sent Cesar Prieto, Drew Rom, and Zach Showalter back to the Cardinals. Okay, that's fine.
16th, 18th, and unranked prospect. So whatever. Orioles can afford to give him up.
Yeah.
16th and 18th within the organization.
With the Orioles
Yeah,
organization.
okay.
Yeah, no.
If
we gave up 2 top 20 prospects, I would have been for 2 months of a guy with a 4.4 ERA, I would have been burning down Baltimore. But, yeah. But yeah, just before we move off of that, I would shout out to Felix Bautista, who won reliever of the month for the 3rd time this year. For those who can't count, it's only been 4 months of baseball, so pretty
the other
good.
guy?
I don't remember.
I'm gonna look that
It
up.
wasn't anybody whose name I recognized, but 3 out of 4 is pretty good, and he's been decisively the best relief pitcher in all of baseball this year. I don't think there's any shot of him winning the Cy Young if Zach Britton didn't get real consideration in 2016.
With the best relief pitching season ever.
And with bad starting pitching that year, relatively speaking, like Rick Porcello won it. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But with Cole pitching as well as he has this year, it's just he's gonna get it, and I think that's fine because he's been great.
I mean, yeah, Cole, in the preseason, when we did our picks for who was going to win awards, I picked Garrett Cole to win the Cy Young just because I didn't see anybody else in the American League that I was like, yeah, I trust that they're for sure going to be one of the top 3 pitchers.
Yeah,
I didn't really think that Cole was going to win it. I just didn't know who else would, and I figured he was going to be a top 3 guy for sure.
Yeah, so he
I
was
just
the
went.
smart pick.
I just went with the odds.
Yeah, I feel like if DeGrom could stay healthy, but we know DeGrom has historically lately, last few years, he hasn't stayed healthy. He would have been an option, but
yeah,
he got hurt first few weeks. So
yeah,
Apparently he had Tommy John surgery before, and he's having another one.
yeah, it's unusual. Normally, people they do it once, supposed to be coming back stronger than ever or whatever, and just you don't have to worry about it again.
I mean, a second Tommy John surgery is kind of a harbinger of your career coming to an end.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
The guy who won Relief Pitcher of the Month in the American League in May was someone called Alex Lange, who I have never heard of. He apparently is on the Tigers.
the Tigers are just so good, right? So
Yeah, I mean, they finished the rebuild and everything.
must have gotten a lot of saves in that month where the Tigers won 6 games.
They won 6 games.
I don't know, I'm just making it up, but
Okay. A team that can't seem to win 6 games is the New York Yankees. What's going on in the Bronx?
yeah. I mean, outside of Garrett Cole, there really isn't a whole lot to hang our hats on in New York. I mean, the dude is 10-2. He's made 23 starts this season, and his ERA is the best that he's had since his last year in Houston. I think it's like the 3rd best. He's on track to have the 3rd best ERA of his career for a season. But outside of him, it hasn't been that pretty. Since our last show, you mentioned that the Orioles are 5-4 now with their win this afternoon. Yankees are 3-5 since our last show. They split their Subway Series at home against the Mets 1-1. They lost the Baltimore Series 1-2, as you guys mentioned. They lost versus Tampa 1-2. And then we weren't really players at the trade deadline either. Our one move was to trade a 21-year-old prospect, Juan Corella, to the White Sox for Kenyon Middleton. And
I don't know who either of them
yeah, I
are.
have no idea.
And Middleton has been actually pretty decent for the White Sox this year. He's had a really good K rate this year. It's over 11.5 per 9 innings. He's got a 221 expected batting average allowed, which is the lowest in his career. I'm not super familiar with that stat, so I couldn't tell you how good that stat is. I just know that it's, he's having basically his best year of his career, but I don't know how really good this guy is. And he's a relief pitcher, which that's not really the area of the team that the Yankees needed to improve to move the needle. If we're going to make a move at the deadline, that move needs to either be to sell and start, building for next year, or it needs to be to try and win now and get back into the playoff race. And it just kind of felt like the Yankees did neither of the two. So why bother making a trade at all?
Just say you were not the only team that didn't make a trade.
Well, and as of 4 p.m. on trade deadline day, the Yankees were the only team in
Yeah,
Major League Baseball
I
that
thought
had
they were
not
going to go
made
the
a
distance.
trade.
And
It looks like
they
it.
made this nominal trade that means nothing. Like the Yankees.
It leads me to think that that's exactly what it was. It was literally just so that we weren't the only ones.
So that talk radio and John Boy and Jack or whoever can't get on their show and say, we're the only team that didn't make a trade. We're the damn New York Yankees. How could we not do anything? Well, you did a little something and it meant nothing.
It's like the Patriots and the Eagles swapping late 7th round picks because they made draft trades so many years in a row.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
We're just trading just to trade.
Yeah, just to have something to do today on day 3. But I just don't understand why the Yankees added a bullpen guy when the bullpen is the Yankee strength.
Yeah,
that wasn't a need.
Right. The needs right now are hitters and pitchers behind Cole. And
so everything except for relievers.
Basically, yes. And speaking of starting pitchers behind Cole, if you haven't heard, Domingo Germán, the most recent not my boy.
Definitely not your boy.
Definitely not my boy. The most recent pitcher to deal a perfect game in Major League Baseball, granted against the A's.
Took that from Felix. Of all people.
Yeah.
Now I'm mad that, actually, because it wouldn't make a difference because he still would have thrown it. Max Scherzer got ripped off of his perfect game because the guy leaned his elbow in and took the hit by pitch. And,
Jose Tabata.
Yeah.
At least the person to take away
Angelo was losing his mind, and I was just like,
at least the person to follow Felix would have been not a disgraceful human being.
Yeah, but the person to follow Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famer, would have been Domingo Germán. So.
Yeah. So, in any case, he has been placed on the restricted list by New York for the remainder of the season.
What did he do now?
He submitted himself to inpatient treatment for alcohol abuse. Supposedly, there was an incident at the team facility earlier this week that left Aaron Boone and Garrett Cole visibly shaken. Specific details have not made it into the press.
Nor do they need to.
Nor do they need to. But we know that this is a guy who has had some issues with his behavior in the past. He served an 81-game suspension spanning the end of the 2019 season through the pandemic-shortened 2020 season for violating the league's policy against domestic violence. Then after briefly considering retirement during the summer of 2020, he served a 10-game suspension this season for violating MLB's policy on grip-enhancing substances, sticky stuff.
Miscellaneous goo.
And then they're saying that this was not related to any of this, and maybe it's not, but even as recently as this past Monday, there was this weird situation where he was scratched from his start, but then he appeared in the game of relief and threw 5 scoreless innings.
That's weird.
You can't tell me that's not connected.
Really?
That's
a really weird thing to happen, because if he was dealing with some sort of an injury,
you don't play.
Why would you then turn around and say, "Oh, he's feeling better. Let's go ahead and put him in relief"?
Mm-hmm. That's weird.
My
be
speculation,
more risk averse. If there was an injury, even briefly, there was a scare of an injury. Give him the day completely off and have him get checked out by the trainers before you have him throw. It's just really weird. So again, maybe it's not connected at all. The team is saying it's not connected at all. I just don't know if I buy that.
Well, considering that this might lead to another conversation, the team decided to cover up a concussion for 2.5 months.
Well, and so I'm gonna get to that in just a second. So just to kind of wrap up stuff on Domingo Germán, part of me is why doesn't the team just cut ties with him? I'm so sick of him being a Yankee, just in general. My hope is that the reason that they're not is something as benign as they want to be able to give him whatever help that they can. right? And having him on the roster may be able to give him better access to whatever rehab programs and stuff. And, regardless of my feelings about him as a human being, and those opinions are not very high at all, I believe that everybody deserves an opportunity to try and better themselves. Everybody deserves to have access to whatever it is, whatever kind of therapy you might need, whatever kind of medication you might need that can hopefully help you to become, a more constructive part of society, to help you become a better person to those around you, those that you supposedly love, that you claim that you love and care about. But I don't want him to throw another pitch for the Yankees again. I don't want to see him in a Yankee uniform again. I didn't want to see him in a Yankee uniform after his domestic violence situation in 2019. And it really bothered me that I had to see him in a Yankees uniform after that. So, get him the help that he needs. And then once you've done all that you can on that front, cut ties with the guy. I'm done with it. I'm done with him. Back to what you were alluding to, Eric. So Anthony Rizzo was placed on the injured list this week. In the past several days or so, he's reported experiencing brain fog, and some tests revealed cognitive impairment, basically failed some concussion tests. The team is saying that they believe that the symptoms stem from back on May 29th or 28th when he had that collision at first base with Fernando Tatis Jr.'s hip. So Fernando Tatis Jr. was retreating back to first base. Rizzo retrieved the ball, was trying to tag him out, and basically as Fernando Tatis made contact with the base, Rizzo's head and Tatis's hip made contact. Supposedly, after that, he went through, took all the concussion tests, passed all of the Major League Baseball's concussion protocols, but symptoms have started to emerge recently. Either the Yankees were covering up a concussion, as Eric thinks may have happened, or Major League Baseball needs to shore up their concussion protocols and improve them significantly, because how do you miss something like that? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a neurologist. I don't know if this can potentially be a normal thing. Maybe you need to test, do concussion tests immediately after, and then again a couple of months after. I've never heard of it before.
I can't imagine that, there was just no symptoms when it was obvious on the field of play that he couldn't play baseball anymore. He stopped hitting home runs. He had no power. He had no idea how to hit the ball. He just fell off a cliff for 2 months after having a pretty damn good start to the season.
Saw on Sunday night, the platinum sombrero.
Yeah,
I think
brutal.
So I think it's difficult because what we're talking about as far as his struggles at the plate, that may be more of a physical issue, right?
Okay.
Now we could make the argument, okay, well, it probably stems from a neurological issue that is causing him to not see the ball as well, not pick up on pitches, not, maybe his hand-eye coordination is affected by it. But whatever the case is, if he legitimately took and passed all of the concussion tests for the league concussion protocol, I want to understand more about how concussions manifest.
Right.
Is this something that can happen? Because if
late
so,
onset thing or
this
something.
is something that needs to be done more frequently. This is something that we need to be aware of in the NFL.
Certainly.
Of course,
You know,
that's the concussion sport.
The sport where the most concussions occur. We need to be able to not just get them through an initial round of the concussion protocol, but we might need to retest them a month later or 2 months later, because maybe the symptoms that would show up on the concussion tests don't show up initially sometimes, but might show up later. Maybe we need to make concussion tests that are more rigorous. I don't know the answer, but something needs to be addressed here, whether it's with the protocols themselves or with the Yankees as an organization, if they covered this up. Something has to be done there. As a Yankee fan, I hope it's the former. But as somebody who doesn't want for brain injuries to become any more complicated than they already can be, there's a part of me that's also like, I kind of hope that the Yankees did cover it up and that they get in a crap ton of trouble for it, because at least that means that we don't have to worry about, if somebody passes the concussion test, maybe they still have one. I'd rather that not be a possibility.
Which one of y'all wrote Anthony Rizzo heads to the IL? That seems a poor choice of words.
I think Corey put that down probably before he realized.
I wrote it in. I did not think about the pun that was in there.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. All right. So anyway, on some different news, Aaron Judge returned from the IL this past week. He returned for the Baltimore series, much to y'all's chagrin. Just played the first 2 games of the series where he went 3 for 6 with 3 walks, a homer, 2 runs, 2 RBI, only 1 strikeout in those 2 games that he played. Then he rested Sunday, much to some Yankees fans' ire. We'll talk about that in a second. Came back, and in the 3-game series against the Rays, just 2 for 9, but he again had 3 walks, only 1 strikeout in those 12 plate appearances. So, the batting average, not as great in the second series, but still decent. Small sample size, and I'll take a 2 for 9, especially when you're, reaching base 5 times in 12 appearances, and he's only striking out once, in each of in those series. So. He has been dealing with a little bit of toe soreness since his return, so he DH'd on Tuesday. He's likely going to do quite a bit more DHing, plus taking occasional days off as he continues to work his way back into shape. And this is where, we come to an interview that Aaron Boone did with a show that John Boy is on. Is it his show?
Yeah, John Boy.
It's part of John Boy Media. I'm assuming.
He's on the show.
Yeah. So. They were expressing frustration with the fact that we bring Aaron Judge back for that Baltimore series, but then we rest him on Sunday Night Baseball, a nationally televised game, the last game of a series against the team that is leading the American League East. How could you do this? It's like, okay, but we brought him up to play in this series without giving him a rehab stint. If we had gone the way that some would argue we should have gone, and given him some minor league games to work his way back into game shape, he wouldn't have been in that series at all. He wouldn't have hit a home run on Saturday. He wouldn't have gone 3 for 6 or 3 walks over those first 2 games and, been an offensive contributor, given us chances to win those games. He wouldn't have been there for any of it.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't have been there for the Rays series either.
Right. I'll take, him contributing for 2 out of 3 games over him contributing in 0 out of 3 games. I'll take him contributing in all 3 Rays games instead of maybe being up for the last of the 3, maybe, depending on how long that rehab stint would be. Like, this is a guy who spent almost 2 full months out of baseball. Didn't play an inning. Couple of simulated game appearances. That doesn't mean anything to me.
And you're just going to come back and play
Major League Baseball. And you're just going to come back and play
couch
every single day.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works. And maybe you argue, okay, so give him Saturday off and have him in the lineup Sunday. Like, this is Sunday Night Baseball. It's people are tuning in to watch this game. They want to see Aaron Judge. They're showing up the ballpark because it's prime time. They want to see Aaron Judge. Sure, but we just brought him back up. We're going to play him for 1 game and then give him a day off immediately. He can play 2 days. We don't feel comfortable putting him a 3rd day in a row.
Maybe
so we're going to play him those 2 days, and then we're going to take him out Sunday so that he can also be here for the Rays series, which, by the way, is also an important series. The Rays are 2nd place in the division. They're not that far behind the Orioles. Like, the difference between the significance of those 2 series is so minute. Why are we having this discussion? So I was glad that Aaron Boone was able to, he defended that very well. And Aaron Boone can be a bit of a clown sometimes.
Mm.
I have expressed my frustration with him on this podcast, as well as Brian Cashman. Y'all have expressed your frustration
we
and
made
annoyance
fun of
with
him.
Aaron
Yeah,
Boone. Not so much frustration because you're not fans. You don't really
Savages
care if
in the
he's not
box,
good,
you know?
But your annoyance with him, and you also express your appreciation for those
Very
one-liners.
memeable guy.
Very mememeable guy.
I also
But
also appreciated he got tossed out of 4 games so quickly that they suspended him for a game because they're like, you need to chill. Okay, you're doing too much. Okay, relax.
He also got ejected from a game that we were at that he was arguing balls and strikes after the last strike had been thrown. Or I guess
So
like the game was over.
right, and he
he's
still got
ejected.
thrown out. So when he is right about something, he is very good about explaining it and defending it, and I appreciated that from him. So
Sure, Boone was a TV guy, so I mean,
He was good on TV
yeah,
too.
yeah.
So I mean, he can articulate a point,
Oh, sure.
in front of a microphone.
So, in any case, the Yankees are back to last place in the East. They fell a game behind Boston. They're 3.5 games out of the third wildcard spot. They're one of 2 teams, the other being Toronto in the division with a losing record against teams over 500. I mentioned earlier that 3 of the 4 teams with winning records in those games in the AL are in the East, but they are not the 3rd and 5th teams in the division. So that's kind of where the Yankees are at right now. So why don't we talk a little bit of trade deadline stuff?
Well, I mean, just want to mention the Blue Jays have had a terrible season against the AL East.
Yeah,
I
they've
think
been
they're
really
like
bad
7 and 20
It's
something.
not good.
I think it's worse than that.
Yeah, because they lost again today. But what's the deal with them, right? They're supposed to be good. The Orioles are supposed to be, this plucky little team. Maybe will win 82 games or something like that.
That's what I picked him to win was 82 games
Yeah,
back
after
on
83 last year.
Yeah.
So like, what's the deal with the Blue Jays? They're kind of terrible. But yeah, let's go around the league. Let's see. The Angels just decided they were buyers and not sellers.
I believe I had that one.
You did.
Yeah.
You
I
did.
said they were going to do
They
that.
took Shohei off the block.
Yeah, they took
went and
Shohei
got
off
other
the
people.
block. They
That's your boy.
Lucas Giolito.
Yes, that's your boy.
They got C.J. Crone and Randall Grichuk and Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez.
CJ Crone is going to be a great immaculate grid guy. He's been everywhere. that dude's on a new team every year, and he's pretty good.
I think this is the second time at least the second time anyway, he's been with the
He was
Angels.
within the Angels before, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as soon as they made this deal, they lost the first 2 games to the Blue Jays last weekend. So, not great, but they did manage to win that 3rd game in 10 innings.
Interestingly, the Angels 4th place in the American League West, but 3 games above 500.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they're in the mix.
Without the A's, the West would be also considered a really strong division like the East.
Yeah, but the A's,
But the
are
A's just bring them
historically
down
awful.
so bad.
Well, they also get to pummel the A's. I mean, it's not as often as they used to, but 13 games against them versus, 6
The
or
A's
7
are
for most
49
people.
games below 500.
49.
Yeah, the Royals are giving them a little bit of a run for the,
They
for
were.
the bottom,
The
but
Royals
the Royals
lost
They are, but
all
they're
the
only
games.
40 games below.
Yeah, the Royals have won a couple of games lately, and the A's haven't done anything.
The Royals
so.
are 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, so
Oh, wow.
they got going a little bit when they were 28 and 70, and they were 28 and 70 had 0 top 100 prospects. I'm like, how is that possible?
that
The Royals have the best record of the last 10 games in that division. They're 3 games better than anybody
Well, that
else.
division's a joke. So
It is.
now I'm curious. Like, did the Orioles have any top 100 prospects in 2018? Like when they were winning 47 games?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
'cause
we'll have to look that up.
I feel y'all
yeah.
didn't have a whole lot of hope for the future yet at that point.
Well, no, that's why we had to do the big
Bottom,
rebuild.
yes.
But I still figure we have at least one. I don't know.
Who was that?
Hey, Ryan Mountcastle.
When was Adley drafted? Was that 2019?
Yeah, he was drafted because of that
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
So, yeah, no.
Yeah, maybe Mountcastle was that guy. But, I mean, it wasn't a whole lot of people. Let's see what else. Justin Verlander is back on the Astros.
Yeah.
Some of us might have gotten a little hopeful that the Orioles would make that kind of deal. That didn't happen, so he's back in Houston.
Yeah, he has I think he has the 5th best ERA in Major League history of anybody who's had 100 starts with the same team. So his Astros ERA is the 5th best of any other pitcher with one team who's made at least 100 career starts with that team.
Oh, okay. 2-time World Series champion.
Yeah.
The Padres were buyers for some reason. They acquired...
What choice do they have? Like, they got to try to win.
What have they been doing all year then? Have they not been trying to win before this week?
Well, yeah.
The Padres have a better record against teams above 500 than they do against teams below 500.
Like, you can't just fold up the season when you went all in, right? That's what going all in means. You got to go down with the ship. The idea of, we're going to be sellers now because for some reason we couldn't win any games even though we have one of the best run differentials in the league.
Yeah, they do have a great run differential, but they keep losing.
They're like the opposite of last year's Vikings.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Vikings win every close game and the Padres lose every close game.
Yeah, they pound people like 12-1, and people are like, "Oh, well, the Padres, have they turned the corner?" I'm like, no, they've done this all year. They smoke people and then they blow games. You know,
They lose
4-3.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
like they can't actually have any consistency. We're just like, let's just beat everybody 8-4. Why not? You know.
Yeah, the Padres also got G-Man Choi. Let's see, Tommy Pham to the Diamondbacks. Hopefully he doesn't have to slap anybody over there.
Well, Jock Peterson is in the division, so
okay.
keep that in mind.
We might have ourselves a Donnybrook at some point here.
Sounds great.
Jock Peterson on the Giants, right?
Yes.
Okay. Rays acquire Aaron Savali from the Guardians, and Rangers get Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton from the Cardinals. Max Scherzer from the Mets, and Aroldis Chapman from the Royals.
Yeah, the Rangers big-time buyers at the deadline.
Yeah, they got Chapman a while back, like well before the deadline. They've had
like
him
a month ago, yeah.
about a month, because they're like, we need the bullpen help now.
Yeah,
and,
but just making a note that like they really went in. I mean, Max Scherzer obviously a big pickup.
Are we sure Max Scherzer is a big pickup? Because he's kind of been
He's a big
cheeks.
name. He's been inconsistent this year. He'll have like a really good start, and then he'll have a couple of mediocre to.
I don't think he's a top of the line starter in the playoffs anymore.
Oh, I mean, he's the Warrior God.
Probably not, but
the Warrior God.
Keep in mind
future Hall of Famer, but
the Rangers are leading that division. They were leading that division before they got Scherzer, before they got Montgomery, before they got Chapman. In fact, so maybe they don't need Scherzer to be a top of the rotation guy in the playoffs. Maybe he can be the number 2 guy. Maybe Montgomery might be the 3 or the 4 guy. Montgomery's quietly been making a pretty good career for himself. I mean, he really struggled for a while with the Yankees. Every time that he would make a start, Michael Kay is always like, oh, like everybody loves Jordan Montgomery. He releases every single pitch from the exact same location, like
the pitch tunneling.
Yeah. So, but like it just never really came together in New York. But he's been good with the Cardinals, and hopefully he can remain good with the Rangers.
The Rangers are ahead of the Astros by a game right now.
Yeah.
So Astros coming off of winning the World Series,
but even if the Rangers fell behind the Astros by the playoffs, they're pretty solidly in the playoffs at this point. It would take a lot for them to fall out of the wild card.
Yep.
Yeah. So good for them. Let's see. And the Marlins got David Robertson from the Mets. Someone else I was hoping the Orioles would get.
Yeah, and that's less notable for it being the Marlins and more so for the Mets selling, and just how interesting it is that, so back to Max Scherzer being traded to the Rangers, he had a no-trade clause in his contract. He waived that, and it seems that it may have stemmed from a conversation that he had with some of the higher-ups in the Mets organization where, they suggested that they don't expect to be players for serious playoff contention until 2025 and more likely 2026. And I think that Scherzer was like, okay, well, my career is, I'm not getting any younger.
He's
here.
a man. He's 40. He needs to
I'm
go
40
do
years
something
old.
else,
If I'm going to try and compete, like, clearly this is not the place where I'm going to be competing for a World Series title. I got one with the Nats. I want another one.
Well, yeah.
So
Also compete in October. I got you, but
so it's not it's not a bad move for him to go to the Rangers.
Of course not. No, it makes
again,
sense.
the Rangers may not be able to rely on him as their ace, but if he can rely on the Rangers to get him there, then all the more power to Scherzer.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the conversation he had was directly with Steve Cohen.
Yeah,
Like, he
I
was
think it
talking to
was.
the owner, and the owner was like, "Well, I spent all this money and it didn't work, so next year's probably a punt year, and then we'll see where we are after that." And Scherzer's like,
okay,
well, I'm gonna get up out of here then."
Yeah.
I'll blame him.
The Marlins are half a game out of the wild card in the NL. So, good for them. They might make the playoffs again.
And David Robertson's a good reliever, so
Yeah.
maybe that
Pitch
makes
for
a
your
difference
Yankees.
for them.
Had an iconic moment in one of the wild card games when Sanchez took a foul ball off the man zone, and Robertson was pitching and made a very expressive reaction, which I think is iconic. Let's see. That is it for baseball. Corey, your Yankees took a 3-0 lead on the Astros, but now it's down to 3-2 in the second inning. Let's get some football in here. Training camp has started. There was much ado about nothing, of course. Aaron Rodgers defends Nathaniel Hackett against criticism from Sean Payton. Sean Payton's just saying, I don't know what he said, but he said something along the lines of, Hackett had the worst coaching season of all time or something. Like, well, yeah, he kind of did. It was on television. We saw it.
Week 1, Monday
Yes.
Night Football.
Week
We
1,
watched it
Monday Night
happen.
Football. Just, a complete meltdown. Our boy Nat Hackett, PI, no idea what's going on over there. So, to say that he had one of the worst single coaching seasons ever, like, yeah, he did. So, Aaron over here defended Nat Hackett, PI, I guess, because, he's his drinking buddy or something like
Oh,
that.
he's also now a coach with the Jets.
Yeah, so Nathaniel
Oh,
Hackett is now
okay.
the offensive coordinator for the Jets.
Well, good luck with
And
that.
He's Aaron Rodgers.
They were
Aaron
buddies in Green
Rodgers
Bay,
has
yeah.
said that he's his favorite coach he's ever had.
Yeah.
All the rest of the Jets offensive players seem to love him. Like,
I'm sure he's a great dude.
yeah.
But he was a terrible head coach.
He was a terrible head coach. But I think that really what Aaron Rodgers was trying to say is, like, you can motivate your team, like your new team, without tearing down the previous guy. Like, that's not the way to try and build a culture. And I can't say I disagree with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Sean Payton's my boy. I regret that I got him retired when I picked him for Coach of the Year.
Yes.
Because now I have Dennis Allen, who I'm desperate to get fired.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pick her, Dennis Allen.
I can't pick him just for spite. I actually have to make an honest pick in order to get him fired. Because I kind of cheated with Brandon Staley, and he somehow ducked it, even though he deserved to get fired.
Start working on your story for how.
No, it can't be a
makes sense
story.
for,
Okay,
for him to.
it can't.
be-
It has to be genuine.
Oh, no.
Because it doesn't make sense. Anyway, we're talking about Sean Payton's statements were completely unprofessional and way out of line. Like, let's be clear. Just because they were true doesn't mean that they were appropriate. Like, it's Stephen, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it, right? Like, that was the case here. Like, there's a certain professional courtesy to not badmouth your colleagues, and that's what Daniel Hackett is to Sean Payton. In ways, he's a colleague, and I think that Aaron Rodgers was right to stick up for his guy. I think that Payton deserved criticism. Payton acknowledged that he made a mistake by doing it. He even said like he forgot he wasn't wearing a Broncos visor. He was wearing his Fox hat still, right? Like when he was an analyst, like as an analyst, yeah, go ahead. You can rip anybody to shreds that you want. That's why you're on TV. But when you're an employed coach, there are boundaries that you probably shouldn't cross, and he crossed them.
Yep.
But ultimately, this is a phone call conversation of, I got a little out over my skis. I said some things I shouldn't. Conversation, have a beer later, move on. It's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah.
All right. Javonte Williams will get preseason work 10 months after his ACL tear. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, so speaking of the Broncos,
I forgot all about him.
Yeah, apparently Sean Payton's just going to throw him right into the fire this preseason and get him a lot of work.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Apparently he has not been limited at all in practice, but
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Hey, man, Adrian Peterson came back
Well,
right
Adrian
away.
Peterson is one of one.
Well, maybe this guy is also, maybe he's 2 of 2 now. We don't know. Javonte Williams looked great before he got hurt, by the way.
He's not Adrian Peterson.
You don't know that.
He looked really good before he got hurt.
He was about to take over that backfield from fumbleitis Melvin Gordon. So
Raven Melvin Gordon.
He had basically already taken it over. I think he had
he was well on his way.
He got hurt in week 4 last year, and in his first 3+ games, I think it was like the first quarter of the 4th game. So it was really just like 3 games.
Yeah.
I think he had I want to say 40 some carries and 28. Either 28 targets or 28 catches. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
He had completely taken over that backfield.
Yep.
And then he got hurt, and Melvin Gordon got to go back to his fumbling ways, and now he's with isn't he with?
He's with
Ravens?
Baltimore.
Just said that.
He's with the Ravens.
Well, you muttered it because you're sad about it.
Yeah. He's on the list of people I'm ready to run out of town too, and he just got here.
Yeah, we haven't even had a preseason game yet.
No, he hasn't grasped the ball in a critical situation yet.
Well, who was the guy that grasped it at the game we went to?
That was not Javid Best, but it was.
Javid Best has been out of the league for years.
Yeah,
He was a
Justice
Raven?
Hill.
No, I was about to say
it was Justice
I
Hill.
remember him being a Lion.
I remember him being a Cal Bear and throwing up at Bird Stadium, as it used to be known, because he got stuck. He took a big shot. He's laying on the bench, just green stuff flying out of his mouth. You can look it up on YouTube. It's there.
I don't know if I want to see
it was
that.
great. It was awesome. It's great. I loved it. Terps won that game, by the way. That was awesome.
Yeah. So my brain got stuck for a second. I knew it was a J name. Justice Hill put the fumble Rooski together and forgot the Rooski last year against the Browns. Other notable injuries. We're going to be here for a while. Bengals
Welcome to
quarterback.
training camp.
Yeah. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow sprains calf, will be sidelined, quote, several weeks, but will hopefully be ready for week 1.
Yeah, basically they're probably going to end up holding him out for all 3 preseason games, and
As they should have done anyway.
Yeah, that should have already been the plan. Come on.
maybe. I mean, you want to get these guys some game reps.
That's called week 1.
It's Joe Burrow, man.
Yeah.
Let him cook.
If you're not right, if you're Joe
He's
Burrow,
got to
and you're-
warm up to cook.
Okay.
There's a reason you preheat the oven.
what's practice for then? Are we just talking about practice, or are we practicing?
Well, I seem to remember he probably played in the preseason last year, and his first throw was a pick six, which ruined my fantasy season at 1:05 p.m. on Sunday.
So maybe he should have played some more preseason snaps, and
or
that wouldn't have happened.
maybe he shouldn't have. It clearly didn't help.
DeMarcus
Ware
Ware
is
is singing the national anthem.
That's wild.
Who owes who a soda?
I owe Evan a lot of money anyway, so
Yeah. Hotel Breakers was a little pricey.
yeah, it was.
It was worth it, though.
That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Back to the injury
Yeah,
list.
back to more injuries. Cooper Kupp,
Your boy.
tweaking his hamstring. He'll miss a few weeks.
Yeah, if you've seen some of the videos from early training camp, his footwork looked lightning fast. Like somebody was posting, who I forget who it was now, but I saw another video the other day. I was like, Cooper Kupp's feet were moving faster than his. But the Rams do expect him to be ready for Week 1. So hopefully nothing too severe there, because obviously when he is on the field, Cooper Kupp is outstanding.
Yes. Dolphins cornerback Jalen Ramsey will miss at least a couple months after needing surgery on his left meniscus.
Yeah, it's a big loss.
I didn't know he was on the Dolphins.
It's a big
they
loss for the
traded
Dolphins.
him,
They just acquired him, and to lose him for the first couple months of the season is potentially pretty devastating.
Yeah, that cornerback tandem of him and Xavier Howard was going to be nasty. So.
That was going to be
goodness.
an amazing. That was going to be an amazing defensive backfield. So, we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully, it's just 2 months from the surgery, and so he really only misses a month of the regular season. But they're saying at least a couple of months, which leads me to believe that they think it could.
He might be
take
a mid-season
more.
injury. Yeah.
Right.
Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney.
Is he hurt again? Oh,
Yep.
I'm
Yes, he's
shocked.
hurt again.
Don't believe
Had
it.
surgery on a partially torn left meniscus on Tuesday, but team thinks he may be back in time for their season opener. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, this kind of threw me a little bit because it's also meniscus injury. Jalen Ramsey's injury is a meniscus injury, and yet the Chiefs think that this is not going to take as long to recover from. I guess because it was only partially torn, but
He's also Kadarius Toney.
he's also
so
Kadarius
that's-
Toney.
Yeah.
Yeah, and-
Apparently, he suffered this injury like before practice even started. Like he was just catching a couple punts or something.
That sounds appropriate.
My knee. Like,
Yeah, that
What?
sounds like something that would happen to Kadarius Toney.
there was 0 practices that had been had, and he was already out.
Well, the
months.
thing with meniscus injuries is they're kind of unpredictable. Like
Yeah.
you see it in basketball all the time. Like Joel Embiid has had meniscus injuries. He's played, but it's affected him. The Time Lord is constantly dealing with meniscus injuries, and he's constantly having to manage his knees because of that injury.
You constantly have to remind me who that is. Robert Williams?
Robert Williams, yes.
The third.
The
third?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
3 of them. And of course, the greatest, worst player of all time, James Wiseman, suffered a meniscus tear in his rookie season in, like, I think maybe February or March of 2021, and wasn't seen on an NBA floor again until Evan's favorite time of the league, the Summer League, in
no.
July of 2022. That was the last time that we saw him, and then we saw him in October, and he sucked, and he never played again for the Warriors. So, it's a tricky injury. You don't really know what's going to happen. I imagine that there's swelling involved that's kind of unpredictable as well. So obviously we hope everybody gets healthy, but Kadarius Toney is a prime candidate for training camp injuries. Let's just call it what it is.
Training camp hadn't started yet. He was just out there running around.
He was training for training camp.
Yeah. And he couldn't handle that. He's out.
Caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yes, he did. In one of his 5 snaps.
Yeah. Him and
Line-
Sky Moore.
Yeah, him and Sky Moore, exactly.
You guys both suck, and they caught touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And the Cardinals decided to hire that defensive coordinator. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals, they're getting the number 1 pick in the draft. Are we in agreement on that one?
Well, see, the problem is every time we make that prediction, that team ends up overachieving and surprising us. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where I'm leaning right now, anyway. On to the Lions, who've had plenty of number 1 picks. Cornerback C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
My boy,
Your boy
C.J.
C.J.
Love him.
G.J.
The
returned
Javon
to
Wims
practice.
antagonizer took his mouthpiece and caused a little fracas there.
That
He got punched.
It was entertaining.
He got punched in the face and didn't even react. Corey's laughing because
The returner, like, he caught it way over his head. It bounced off his fingers.
the first fake football game of the year is out here. Just,
First kickoff.
Kellen
Kellen
Mond
Mond
is playing.
versus Zach Wilson. That's
Yes.
the matchup.
Kellen Mond, alrighty.
But anyway, what were we talking about before all that?
We were talking about
CJ
CJ.
Yeah, and Javon Wims a couple weeks later against the Saints in the playoffs dropped a perfectly thrown Mitch Trubisky ball, which is a unicorn because it was a perfectly thrown
Mitch Trubisky ball.
And he just
The MVP. Put some respect on his name.
they scored no points until there was no time on the clock. Like it was a shutout until the clock said 0. They lost. That was pathetic.
The guy who caught that touchdown is now a Saint. Again.
Jimmy Graham is still playing?
Jimmy Graham
Jimmy-
came
yeah.
out of retirement. He is playing for
Yeah,
the Saints.
signed a 1-year contract.
Yes,
I
not
could have
a 1
swore
day.
it said 1
Not a
day.
1
I saw
day,
1
a
year and I
1
was
year
like,
contract with
head
the Saints.
tilt, staring at.
And apparently he's looking really good in training
Give me a
camp.
break. Yeah, he's in the best shape of his life.
He better be.
Just
It's
like
the NFL.
Anthony Rizzo is the most healthy he'd ever been at 33. Yeah, all of that crap. Give me a break. Best shape of my life. You got to be kidding me. Ken Griffey Jr.
I might run
He's
back
in
some
the best
Jimmy
shape of his life. He's 41.
Yeah,
I might
He's
run back
sleeping
some
in the
Jimmy time on
clubhouse.
my fantasy team this year. We'll see.
you can pick him.
Go ahead. Pick him in the first round. Put your money where your mouth is.
Never said first round.
You said you're gonna
I
pick
didn't even
him.
pick Jimmy Graham in the first round in either of our first 2 drafts.
I think you probably picked up second or third round, though.
Probably third.
Yeah.
Okay, there's
Anyway,
football on the TV
back
happening.
to CJ GJ. He returned to practice after suffering a knee injury and being carted off the field last Monday. It was really nervous. He thought that it was a really serious injury, but he's back in practice, and apparently camp reporters are saying that he's looked very impressive. So that's good news for my Lions.
Oh, right, you're lying.
I'm so glad CJGJ's a Lion. That's like a perfect team for him to be on.
It's a fun team.
Him and Man Campbell.
It's a fun team.
Mixing it up.
I was
Oh,
also
yeah, that's
cracking up
greatness.
a little bit because earlier on the TV screen they had the thing like a lower chyron that was saying like buy your Lions tickets now. But the Lions literally just announced today they have sold out all their tickets for the first time ever. They are
You
sold
out
out
the whole building.
of their tickets.
Wow.
So Jared Goff could get
At
him to
least
sell
their
it out, but
at
Barry
least their
Sanders
season
could.
tickets. Maybe they have like a different group of tickets for like individual game purchases, but their season tickets are sold out for the first time ever.
Well, yeah, they beat the Packers to keep him out of the offs.
And there's a lot of excitement
post.
around the team. I mean, some of that excitement definitely stems from their appearance on Hard Knocks, and like Hard
probably
Knocks.
gonna win the
I think
division.
Hard Knocks is always going to
I said that
increase
a couple
team.
years ago, and it didn't happen. So, you know.
But like Hard Knocks is always going to increase a team's popularity a little bit, but I think it really skyrocketed the Lions just because that's a cool team. It's a fun coaching staff. It's a fun group of players. Like they're a team that's easy to root for right now.
Well, and the fact that they actually came out and were competitive and won a bunch of games. Like normally you see a team go on Hard Knocks, and sometimes it's a team with expectations after kind of rebuilding.
But like they
and
did start
tank.
1-6 last year.
Yeah, but then they
And they
got
won
cooking.
8 of their last 10.
Yeah, and they kept Aaron Rodgers out of the post.
They did.
They were running hook and laterals and stuff on Sunday Night Football
In the middle of the game.
Yeah, the last game of the regular season, the Lions are here at Lambeau, and they're winning. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Rodgers threw a pick for his last pass as a Packer, just like his boy Brett Favre. Fitting.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, something to look forward to
My
in Jordan
mom
Love
likes
eventually.
Aaron Rodgers. Big Aaron Rodgers fan.
Okay.
Rodgers.
Back to injuries.
Yeah, back to more injuries.
we
Texans
gotta do
center
more.
Scott Quisenberry tore his ACL and MCL this week and will miss the season.
That's significant because it's a big loss. I mean, we're talking about a rookie quarterback potentially coming in and starting in C.J. Stroud. And, I mean, there's been some talk that it could be Davis Mills starting the season, which I think would
Give
be
me a
just
break.
ridiculous.
me a break.
You
The neck.
moved up and spent a second-round pick on C.J. Stroud. Like, you're starting him week 1. Come on. Of
course.
So, this, but
they
regardless,
moved
this is
up?
a big. Sorry, they moved up for their
They
other
moved
pick.
up for Will Anderson.
Yeah, for Will
Jr.
Anderson.
They had the second
yes,
pick
they had the
because
second
Lovie
pick,
Smith
and then they moved
posed
up
him.
to get Will Anderson. Yes.
That was glorious.
But yeah, I mean, that's a big loss for a potential rookie quarterback to come in and lose his starting center because I think their next man up at the position was like a 5th-round pick this year.
Maybe he's great. I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
they can be rookies together
but
and experience the growing
probably not
pains and
Scott
stuff.
Quisenberry.
Yeah. And the last injury on the list is Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley, who suffered a toe injury. Turns out it was related to his cleats, and he got new cleats, and he's good to go.
Yeah, he returned the next day, and that issue seems to have been resolved, which is good. 'Cause
He was the one who was gambling, right?
Yeah,
he was the one
lost
who was
the whole
gambling.
season.
He wrote a really good piece in the Players Tribune
That still
about
exists?
a month or so ago.
I didn't even know.
Yeah,
that
there's
exists.
not not every article on there is really good, but occasionally there's a really good one on there, and his was really good. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it.
Okay. Alrighty, we got Big Noon Saturday.
Oh, no.
No, not really. Hall of Fame inductions on Saturday at noon. It's gonna be.
Starts at noon.
Blazing hot.
Yeah.
Where's
it
this
starts
going
at
on
noon.
this year?
Canton,
I can't-
Ohio.
Oh yeah. Okay, all right.
At the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you said blazing hot. I'm not used to thinking of Canton, Ohio as being blazing hot.
But it is early August, so it's probably hot.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that hot when we were there. You know, it was-
In May.
yeah.
That's why I don't remember the Anthony Rizzo thing because we were at Kings Island that day.
We were in we went to Kings Island in July twice, and it wasn't that hot.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Actually,
I
We've
was
actually been
sweating
having
like
some
it
pretty
was.
decent weather the last few days.
It's true.
This
Yeah,
past
it's been
week
nice.
has been nice.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame inductees: Rondé Barber, Don Coryell, Chuck Howley, Joe Klecko, Darrell Rivas, Ken Riley, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, and DeMarcus Ware.
How is Don Coryell just now being inducted into the Hall of Fame? Like, I feel like that should have happened 20 years ago.
It probably
Yeah.
should have.
Didn't he
He's
passed away,
dead,
right?
yeah.
Well,
like, his
he's-
daughter
yeah,
is here on his behalf.
He's being inducted posthumously. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then also we're going to be having our NFL picks competition again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So hit us up
Get
on
your picks in.
Facebook, Twitter, email if you want to enter this year's picks contest. As we did last year, we're going to base our spreads on BetMGM's spreads as of 5 p.m. every Wednesday. We'll probably have them on the half point just to avoid any pushes this year because pushes are kind of annoying.
I don't mind
Changes
pushes.
the line though.
Yeah.
Slightly, but the three of us will vote on whether to go up half a point or down half a point, and we'll go with the majority of the three of us.
Guess the lines.
I don't know.
Simmons and
Why can't we
Sal,
just
like-
do the lines that it says? Like if it's so and so plus or minus 7, then it's 7.
Yeah. I agree.
Like we're the bookmakers here. Like
We are the bookmakers.
Technically, we're running the competition. We can make the line whatever we want if we want
that
to.
is true.
That's true. We could make them all like just pick'ems and just not even have spreads and be really stupid about it.
Well, we used to do that,
And
but
that
we
was-
decided to start doing spreads
I
last
agree.
year, and it's fun.
I
agree.
enjoyed the spreads.
Spreads
Yeah.
are good. Makes
Yeah.
you think.
Y'all said it was so.
But I also,
so
it'd be
difficult.
nice not to have ties so that people can beat
Ooh,
us.
that
That's
is
a
no
shank
good.
job.
Yep.
That's
Shankopotamus.
That thing
Field goal
had some
attempt.
hook to it.
In any
Nice.
case, let us know if you're interested, because what we'll do is we will email those ballots out. You may have to check your either your spam folder the first time that we send them out, or if you're on Google, they have like the social and the promotions thing. I think a lot of times it shows up in the socials category of your email inbox. But just keep an eye out for that. But send us whatever email you want to use for it. And we'll start sending that out, and we'll share some additional details about that picks competition in the coming weeks.
Yes, indeed. Is that it? Did I go through the whole thing? Did I miss anything?
I think
Any
that's it
Woj
today.
bombs?
I don't
Not
think
that I saw.
anything spectacular or extraordinary has happened.
Yeah. No, I got nothing. So yeah, I guess, relatively short show for us this week, but don't worry, the 3-hour shows are coming back once we get into the NFL season proper. Alrighty, if you've made it into this far into this podcast, go ahead and smash that subscribe button so our next podcast will be beamed directly to your device as soon as it is posted. You can send us an email, thesportsballers@gmail.com. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to it right now. In addition, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. If we're not on your podcatcher of choice, please reach out to us, and we will try to remedy that for you. You can follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18 for the...
Not Twitter.
not
Follow
Twitter.
us on X.
It's Twitter. Come on, man. You know how many times, like, when I open the, when you guys send tweets on chat, it doesn't send me to the app anymore because I guess Elon messed that up.
yeah,
So, and so the X logo doesn't show up at the top in the center. It sometimes just shows up
In the corner.
You know how many damn times I've tried to press that to exit out of it because I think it's the X button? You gotta be kidding me with this. This is the stupidest thing ever. I mean...
To be fair, even
and it's
before
Twitter,
it switched to
which is
X,
already
it would do the
ridiculous.
same thing to me sometimes, where it wouldn't send me to the app.
Yeah, but
for-
like it does that all the time now.
But yeah.
Like it never works anymore. I'm blaming
I
you.
just hate how, like, if I'm scrolling and stuff, like, I'll go and try and press where the home button used to be, and either it won't be there at all, or it'll
Yeah,
be
they
like my
took that away
profile
too.
picture.
Yeah, it's
I hate
stupid.
that.
Oh,
It's
It's
so
horrible.
annoying.
It's awful.
yeah.
That's why I downloaded Threads today to check it out and see if it's any better than Twitter.
I think it sucks. From what I've heard, it's bad. But give it a shot.
I've heard people who say it's better than Twitter. It's like Twitter if it was done right.
They lost
so
a
I don't know.
gajillion subscribers almost immediately.
Did they?
Yeah. 'Cause people-
Subscribers.
users,
Users,
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, who cares? Whatever they do.
Anyway, yes, you can follow us on Twitter.
Whatever it's called this week, follow us on it. The artist formerly known as Twitter. Corey's at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. And I am at Evan_Ash13. Do we have any YouTube comments? We always forget the YouTube people.
None today.
How many viewers do we get up to? 5 today?
3.
3?
Nice. Quarter dozen. I
Our
love it.
usual quarter dozen.
Our like non-live listeners have been going up quite a bit lately. We've been getting like in the 20s on
pushing
wow.
we've been getting in the 20s on Spotify and in the teens and on Apple.
It's getting tens and tens of views, huh?
Yes.
That's going on.
That's better than the 3 or 4.
yeah, that's a good point.
Or,
The quarter dozen.
yeah, a quarter of a dozen listeners, exactly. Any shout outs? I don't have any this week.
I have a shout out. I'm going to shout out the Women's World Cup team because they did manage to escape the group stage and make
Escape
it into,
is the key word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after beating Vietnam 3-0, probably should have beaten them worse than that. Honestly, it was 3-0.
Okay. All right.
Probably should have beaten them worse than that though, considering Vietnam did not have a single shot, not just no shots on goal, but not a single shot in the match. and the
What
USA
is the
had like
difference?
double-digit shots on
Well, you
goal.
can take a shot that misses the goal. Like a shot on goal is either a goal or a save.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Same thing in hockey.
Yeah.
Well,
Or I think
see
if it
that
hits
hockey.
the crossbar, it's considered a shot on goal in
it's not.
soccer, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about soccer.
I think in soccer it is. I know it's not in hockey.
hockey
It either
it's
has
not.
to be a goal or a save.
Yeah.
In any case, after that they tied the Netherlands 1-1, and then they tied Portugal 0-0. And honestly, the tie against the Netherlands was kind of fortunate in a sense. I mean, it was a really nice goal on the corner kick, but we escaped that game, and then we escaped Portugal with the draw. And I think even after that, we still technically need a little bit of help, which we got.
No, I just needed a draw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, we escaped. We made it to the group stage, and we play Sweden Sunday at 5. Unfortunately, I probably will not be able to watch that game because I'm going to the Beyonce concert on Sunday.
5 a.m. or
Ooh,
p.m.?
where's the
No
queen coming to?
I have no idea. All I know is that Chanel reached out to Rashonda. Chanel was one of Rashanda's.
I know,
yeah.
but how much did you have to pay for these, or were they free?
I mean, we're gonna pay her for them, but she had a couple of extra tickets, and
Sure, that was
so she reached out to Rashonda and invited us.
So what venue did you say that?
I said I
say.
don't remember what venue.
Oh, Evan's looking it
Oh,
up.
Evan's
Okay.
looking it up.
It says Landover.
So
that's
over in
the problem.
Raljan,
Yeah,
at
so-
the
Oh,
FedEx
yeah,
Field.
FedEx Field.
Okay, that makes sense.
Interesting.
Beyonce's going to sell out a football stadium.
Yeah.
Unlike the,
She's not coming to 9:30 club. Like that's not going to be the case. But
Yeah.
Um,
But I can't remember the last time I've been to a concert, and it was probably for like one of my mom's favorite Christian artists
was it a concert 2
when
weeks
I
ago?
was really young.
Was it
So
a concert the week before that? So-
I'm not usually a big concert person, but it's Beyonce. So
I think I've only been to one concert in my life, and it was a disaster.
But in any case, shout out to the women's team for making it into the I guess it's the round of
Elimination
16,
stage,
the
yeah.
elimination stage. So again, starting with Sweden, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose, but I hope they win.
I think they're gonna lose.
Absolutely. Rose Lavelle's out for the game because she got her second yellow against.
The team is not.
They're not cohesive.
Yeah, they've
look
had
out
a
of
lot of
sorts.
shots, but they're not making their shots.
Not making shots. That's
It's
kind of
not
important to make or
yeah,
miss league.
It's kind of
you know?
important.
Sounds like Ben Simmons playing basketball.
Ben Simmons
There's
doesn't
no
take
basket.
shots. Yeah.
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 Baby Worm has been a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah. Anyway,
What's that?
Dennis Rodman's daughter.
Trinity Rodman is Dennis Rodman's daughter. And Dennis
Oh.
Rodman is the worm. There's your primer. You're good.
Oh,
Okay.
never heard the worm.
Eric, any
Who's
shout
your shout out, Eric?
Well, I got a shout out to a very memorable former Oriole who's returning to Camden Yards this week, DJ Stewart. Actually, I'm shouting out Buck Showalter, but
okay.
yeah, Bucky Show is making his return to Baltimore for the first time since 2018 when he was dismissed from the team.
Technically, his contract expired.
Quit/got fired, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. The point is, he moved on, we moved on, but yeah, it's been 5 years. Honestly, Buck was the reason that Orioles fans got to feel like we could actually win some games
Yes.
because we actually won
That
some
happened.
games with him.
Yeah.
It hadn't happened basically my entire life, and
After
honestly,
you guys brought him in, you won more games than any other team in Major League Baseball for the rest of that season.
well, American
didn't you?
League.
The
Well,
American League.
yeah, that first season they went 34-23 when he got hired, which was shocking because the Orioles were terrible.
That team was atrocious.
Yeah, and then the next year they were bad again but then the following year they made the playoffs, and then from 2012 to 2016, the Orioles led the American League in wins for that 5-season stretch. I still firmly believe that the rebuild that has happened for the Orioles right now never happens if not for that window of players that was led by Buck Showalter, because Peter Angelos was just perfectly happy to win 65, 70 games a year and
Make lots of money.
make plenty of money, but
Like the A's owner.
yeah, and so, but then the Orioles somehow got a taste of winning, and I think that drove the fans to demand the team try to actually build something instead of just, being a bump on the log every year. And so that was what led to the ownership saying we're going to commit to a full rebuild, something they refused to do
For
from
decades.
98 to 2011. They just said we're not doing it this way. We're going to trade prospects for veterans who are going to take our team from 60 wins to 64 wins, right? Which, makes no difference at all. And so I feel like, again, without Buck, without his leadership, without that team, Adam Jones, Manny Machado, Chris Davis, J.J. Hardy, you know the guys. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, like, they deserve credit. Buck deserves nothing but love. The fans, I think, are going to give him the ovation that he deserves, and it's going to be great. And hopefully the Orioles kick the crap out of the Mets because they suck and they're selling, and the Orioles are trying to win. So
I have one problem with you saying that there's no difference between 60 and 64 wins because one is more than 100 losses and the other is less than 100 losses.
in the grand scheme of things,
Corey hitting us with the math. Of all people.
Corey loves 100 because Ovechkin's a bum until he scores 100 goals in a season, and Bryce Harper was a bum until he hit 100 home runs. It's just like, just obsessed with this number. 100, it's got to be 100.
Corey's keeping it 100 on this
Like,
podcast.
every NFL player in the history sucks except for a return man or maybe a defensive back because they've only had a 99-yard reception for a touchdown. Got to be a 100-yard reception.
Yeah, Wes Walker sucks.
Yeah, he's a bum. He can't play. All right, so that's all I got.
Alrighty. Yeah, so we paused for a second to watch Zach Wilson have a third down belly flop.
So bad.
And,
missed it.
It was
yeah,
great.
Yeah, it was
Because I hate him, so I
drive
loved
or
it.
so ago. Yeah, you just
That's a huge hold. Like,
Yeah,
what is
that is-
that?
that
It's
is
a bear
penalty.
hug.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get out of here because we're clearly distracted, and I'm hungry. So, for Corey and Eric, I'm Evan. This has been the Sports Ballers Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.